Okay guys, we're going to paint a pumpkin. We're going to use watercolor to create value. We're going to learn what the local color of an object is. We're going to recognize that there are many colors beyond the local color, and we're going to learn how to use those colors to enhance a form. So grab your pencil and follow along. We're going to draw this kind of stretched out oval that has a point on the top and a point at the bottom. Then we're going to draw sort of like C's on either side of it, connecting to that first shape. You see, I went ahead and I did C's on both sides 2 times to form our pumpkin. And then I'm going to add a stem. You can see how I draw a square at the top and connect the corners to the pumpkin, just like this. So now you should get your watercolors set up. Make sure your palette is open, you have water in a cup, you have a brush, and you have a paper towel. So I'm going to wet my brush in the water, nice clean water, and then I'm going to get some of the excess water off and dip my brush in the orange. I want a lot of orange on there. I don't want it to be watery. I want it to be, my brush to be dense with color. So I'm going to use that nice orange to paint the outline of my center shape. So it's going to be nice and dark orange, not a lot of water, but we do want a lot of color. Now I'm washing off my brush and I'm going to use my paper towel to dab off the excess, just like this. Not too much, we just still want the brush to be wet, so I had to get a little more water. You got to find just the right amount of water on your brush so that you can use your brush to pull out some of that color that you put down on your page. I'm going to pull some of it away toward the center of that shape. So my brush is sort of like a mop. It's just pulling the color that's already on my paper out toward the center of my shape. And I just left the center of my shape white. Now I'm doing the same thing to the shapes on either side of that central shape. I'm outlining them in really kind of opaque orange. Not a lot of water, but we definitely want a lot of color. Okay, and then I'm going to rinse my brush off, dab it a little bit on my paper towel, and then use my brush as a mop to pull some of that color toward the center of my shape so that I have a lighter version of that orange moving toward the center of my shape. I just sort of scrub the edge of that orange and pull it out toward the center of my shape so that eventually in every shape I have a really dark orange, I have a middle tone orange, and then I have the white of the paper. And I use my brush to blend all of those things together. I really don't see any brush strokes at all. I'm pushing the color around on my paper with my brush like it's a mop. And I have to find just the right amount of water on my brush to make that work. Now you see I'm dipping my brush in yellow. I'm going to use the yellow to make this orange more rich. So in the middle tones, I'm adding a very thin wash of yellow. So it's real watery. There's not very much yellow on my brush, just a lot of water and a little bit of yellow. And just dabbing some of that yellow in around some of those shapes that are in the front of my pumpkin. So the center shape and then the shape on either side of that center shape, just to give it a little bit more of a pop in the front because those shapes are closest to us and they would pop out the brightest. Now you can see I went and I grabbed a little bit of red and I'm just using the tip of my brush with a tiny hint of red to enhance the orange on the outlines. So just the tiniest little bit of red, just to make that orange a little bit more interesting. So the local color of our pumpkin is orange. The local color of an apple is red. The local color of a banana is yellow. The local color is the color we assume the object to be. But there are so many other colors in most objects. So you see how I'm starting to add yellow and red to make this pumpkin more interesting. Now I'm grabbing purple. And on the bottom of the pumpkin where I know the light can't really get to, I'm adding some purple along the outlines just like this. They just come up a little bit from the bottom because I know that the light can't get under there. So now I'm rinsing off my brush and I'm going to scrub that purple around a little bit so that isn't quite such a hard outline. It's more of a soft shadow along the outlines of my pumpkin, right at the bottom of my pumpkin. So I'm using the opposite side of the color wheel here to give this pumpkin some depth. So we so far only used warm colors, but then once we used the purple, we started using cool colors. So now I got some brown and I'm outlining my stem just like I did when I outlined my pumpkin. Nice opaque outline. Rinse off your brush, dab it on your paper towel, and I grabbed a little yellow on my brush too. And I'm going to scrub that orange out into my stem so that I have a little wash to fill in the shape of the stem. Now I want to do a shadow. So shadows usually have the opposite color on the color wheel. So since this is orange and yellow, I'm grabbing a little mixture of blue and purple, and I'm going to put that shadow right up against the bottom of the pumpkin, really opaque where it touches the pumpkin, and you can see how it starts to fade away to the color of the paper as the shadow gets away from the pumpkin. So I'm going to use my paper towel to dab the edge of that shadow so it kind of creates more of a fade to the white of the paper where the shadow disappears away from the pumpkin. I'm even adding a little bit of purple to the underside of that stem where I know the light can't really get, just to help unify this whole picture. So I have purple at the top of the pumpkin and purple at the bottom. So it all comes together.